Gonna try not to cough through this. Just took some cough medicine that has some questionable drug facts on it. But here to talk about my social action project. Why did I decide to do this project? Honestly, I think I decided to do it because of the election. The week after it, I feel like there's just this collective hurt that you could feel. And the day after, I remember just driving through. I'm in Seattle now, and I remember driving, being like, it's just so quiet. Everything's so quiet that you can feel that. I was like, I need to lie down for at least 3 days. And so I feel like somewhere during that first week, amongst the sadness that I felt kind of collectively among my queer friends for people of color, was just that, it's like we're sad, but we're also so angry now. And like, what can we do? Where do we start? And like, for the first time ever, I felt this need to be active. I felt this need to be actively involved, not just, aware or kind of involved in what's going on campus or something like that, but that I needed to go out and do something. And that was new for me. And so I created this project, this research, kind of surrounding that, and the idea of social activism, and I included volunteering in that as well, for a reason that I'll talk about in a little bit. How did I execute the project? It's pretty clear and concise as far as surveys go. 10 questions, demographics, things like that. I sent it to friends and family. I put it on Facebook, which is terrifying, as Facebook was kind of that following week. And I didn't get a ton of results, which is definitely a downside. Can't wait to learn how to edit videos to cut out all the coughing. So for my outcomes, the first question was, part of this recent election, how much volunteer or activist work did you participate in per month? And 72% said 0 to 2. After the results of this most recent election, how much volunteer or activist work do you plan on participating in per month? 23% said 0 to 2, 47 said 2 to 10, and 23 said 10 to 15. And then I added the question, ideally, how much volunteer or social activism per month would you do if you had no constraints or restrictions? So 50% said 15 plus, and then 30% said 10 to 15. So I think that says a lot. I added the last question in about ideally without any restrictions or constraints kind of later, or after I had kind of thought of the study, because do I have the time for this? Do I have the resources for this? And then I think that's a really common feeling about it, is like, do I have the resources? Can I do this? So yeah, I added that one in as well. And then I also asked, how important do you believe personal or individual activism is in enacting change? And then out of 5, the mean answer there was 4. To clarify, the importance of personal or individual activism in enacting change, out of 5, that was 5 being the most important. So what these findings really mean, or what they say, at least to me, is that there is an issue of access, or resources, or ability to be involved, that the majority of people would give 15 plus hours of their time a month versus 2 to 10 kind of more realistically. I think it brings up, at least for the age group, which is the range was 19 to 25, most of them being about 22 to 25, which are my friends. We'll get to the issues later. Yeah, I think that the college experience and that of the young adult in college is really interesting, because even if they don't have the access by means of capital or of a car to drive them to somewhere, they have this really incredible environment that's really supportive of learning and expanding and growth and all of that. And then the kind of weird juxtaposition of that with the restrictions that are placed on the faculty in academia. In a class, I read a paper or some papers about that kind of inability to have the free speech that students are often afforded because so many people are not tenured, and the colleges and the universities have this desire or need to uphold a certain value, even if it's a place like Rutgers that's pretty much entirely supportive of student free speech, that still the same right is not afforded to the people that are employed there. And I think that's really unfortunate and really sad for the people who may also feel the same drive and need to go out and be active and talk about things. So I think that's something that's very interesting, the idea of access or restrictions. Now on to issues. There were definitely some issues with it. Not only was the sample size very small, but yeah, 18 people took the survey. I have done IRB research. I know that this is not it, so can only take these results with a grain of salt. There's the obvious researcher bias that I have sending it to my friends who I choose to be around for kind of certain reasons. There's the fact that Seattle is kind of a weird liberal bubble. So the people that maybe would take it, I sent it to some people that I didn't know. They still live in Seattle. They still kind of exist within this bubble. There's the fact that I had a question about the participant satisfaction with the results of the election, and everyone said not satisfied. So I think that gives a pretty good picture of the white liberal millennial Seattle view on it, but definitely not a comprehensive picture of what everyone feels across the country. I would be interested to see what my older family would have responded if they had taken it. As far as future directions go, I think it'd be really interesting to look more at access, what it means, how people use it, kind of the weight that it carries. I also would want to do a more legitimate form of this same study, pretty much just asking more across the board, across the country, larger population, more diverse population, and find out how a huge social change or some huge event like that, how it affects people's desire to be active. I also would want to look at what people actually consider social action. I think that's really interesting, and I included volunteering in my questions because I think that when I first started looking at this idea, there was the feeling of I need to get out and do something, anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be feminist activism. It can be whatever it is that you feel that needs to get done. So I know that the Social Action Project is to be on an issue, and that my project is just on social action itself. But I think that in itself can be an issue, especially in the current climate that we're in, where there's kind of a lot of unrest and things are very unstable. And for a lot of people, maybe action feels very abstract and inaccessible to them. They don't know where to start. I know for me, I'm a socially anxious kid, and the idea of going to a protest freaks me out, and I'm like, oh god, I'm the worst for not doing that. But maybe that's not the one for me. Maybe that's for someone else, or maybe I can hold myself to a higher standard and be able to take part in that. But that part of social action is learning, and feminist action is learning what works for you, what you can contribute, because I'm sure there's something that each person has that's necessary somewhere. And so my website is kind of a hub for people, or in theory is like a hub for people where they can go learn more, kind of have it all in one place, and maybe go from there and find their own way. Take what they want from it. There's, actually some links to it, to protests that are actually happening here, or, a link to be able to donate to the Dakota Pipeline protest. And so I think in that way, the Social Action Project is social action in and of itself, hopefully.